Okay, let's be honest. He basically forced my hand, right? My boyfriend Jackson is like the perfect appliance. He's reliable, he's efficient, and he has the emotional range of a high-end toaster. I swear the man's love language is debugging my laptop instead of, actually touching me. So I decided he needed a little nudge. A small reminder that if he wasn't going to appreciate me, there's a line of guys who would. I just wanted to make him feel a tiny bit of jealousy to spark something, anything in him. It's not really my fault that I had to play a few games to get his attention. I mean, what else was I supposed to do? Let our relationship die of boredom? He pushed me to this. He really, really did. Jackson and we've been together for 2 years, and on paper, he's perfect. He's a software developer, makes good money, is stable, and remembers my favorite type of coffee. He's the guy who notices my tire pressure is low before I do, the one who quietly replaces the burnt out bulb in the hallway that I've been ignoring for weeks. When I had that awful flu last winter, he made chicken soup from scratch and didn't complain once when I was a miserable wreck. It's all very practical, very safe. God, so safe it's suffocating. Our Friday nights consist of him meticulously planning which takeout to order based on a spreadsheet of past experiences, while I'm scrolling through Instagram, seeing people on spontaneous adventures and feeling like my life is slowly turning beige. My ex Tyler, he was the complete opposite. He was a hurricane of passion and chaos. I mean, the guy once woke me up at 3 a.m. holding 2 plane tickets to New Orleans because he'd found a last-minute deal for Mardi Gras. We went with nothing but a backpack and the cash in our pockets. He'd bring me a single flower for no reason, book spontaneous weekend trips, and tell me I was the most beautiful woman he'd ever seen. He also cheated on me twice, and our fights could peel paint off the walls. But at least I felt something, It was a roller coaster, but it was thrilling. With Jackson, it feels like a perfectly maintained, incredibly slow-moving escalator, and I'm just dying to jump off the side. I tried to explain this to Jackson once. We were on the couch, late one night, and I was probably complaining about something, telling him some dramatic story about Tyler and a fight we had in a parking lot. When I finished, he was quiet for a long time. I thought he hadn't been listening. Then he turned to me, his face was really serious, and he said, "Brooklyn, I need you to hear me on this. I can handle a lot. I can handle bad moods, stress from your job, whatever. But the one thing I can't do, the one thing I will not do is games. Cheating, manipulation, trying to make me jealous, that stuff." He took a breath and looked at the floor. "It's how my parents destroyed each other. I watched it my whole childhood. I promised myself I would never, ever live like that." God, it sounded so dramatic at the time, right? It felt like he was giving me a lecture from a psychology textbook, not sharing a real, raw feeling. I remember just nodding, probably patting his arm and saying something like, "Of course, baby, I'm not like that." In my head, I was thinking, this is his parents' baggage, it has nothing to do with us. I heard the words, but I didn't really listen. To me, it was just Jackson being Jackson, a little too serious, a little too rigid. I honestly didn't think he meant it, not in a way that would ever apply to me, to us. It was a hypothetical red line for hypothetical horrible people, not a real boundary for his girlfriend who just wanted a little more excitement. The breaking point was our 2 year anniversary. I'd been dropping hints for weeks, sending him links to romantic weekend getaways, pointing out jewelry in store windows, talking about that one friend whose boyfriend surprised her with a hot air balloon ride. I was practically handing him a script. I bought this ridiculously expensive lingerie. I even made reservations at that fancy Italian place downtown he's always wanted to try. I was ready for romance. He comes home that night with a big, awkwardly shaped box wrapped in plain brown paper. My heart actually did a little flutter. Was it a giant bouquet of flowers? A custom-made piece of art? I handed him his gift first, a beautiful vintage watch I'd spent months hunting for. He loved it, of course, in his quiet Jackson way. "Oh wow, Brooklyn. This is very high quality, the craftsmanship is excellent." Then it was my turn. I tore open the paper and inside was a keyboard. A black, lumpy, ergonomic keyboard. The kind that looks like it was melted in the sun. I just stared at it. "It's the best one on the market," he said, smiling, genuinely proud. "You mentioned your wrist was hurting from typing all day, and the reviews on this model for carpal tunnel prevention are incredible." I swear I could hear a dial tone in my brains. A keyboard for our anniversary? I looked at him, at his earnest, happy face, and something inside me just snapped. "Are you kidding me?" I asked, my voice dangerously low. His smile faltered. "What? I thought you'd like it. It's practical." "Practical, Jackson, it's our anniversary. I wanted romance, not a piece of office equipment. Do you even listen to me? Do you even know me?" The fight was awful, he just couldn't understand why I was so upset over a thoughtful, functional gift. After he retreated into his usual stony silence, I sat on the couch, fuming. That's when the idea hit me. It felt less like a choice and more like a necessity. He didn't understand words, so maybe he'd understand action. I scrolled through my contacts and found Tyler's number. My fingers trembled a little as I typed. Hey, can you do me a favor? Send me a text that says, been thinking about you lately. Hope you're doing well. He replied almost instantly, playing with Fire B, you got it. A minute later, the message came through. I placed my phone screen up on the coffee table. Then I waited. When Jackson finally came out of the bedroom to get a glass of water, the screen lit up with Tyler's name. He paused. He looked down at the phone. I saw his eyes scan the message. My heart was pounding. I was ready for the explosion. For him to yell, to demand who this was, to finally show some goddamn passion, but he didn't. He just stood there for what felt like an eternity. Then he looked at me, his face completely blank, and continued to the kitchen. He got his water, drank it, and then walked into his home office, closing the door softly behind him. The click of the latch echoed in the silent apartment. No fight, no questions, nothing, and honestly, that was so much worse. It felt like he didn't even care enough to be angry. That silence was a declaration of war. His refusal to react, to give me the satisfaction of a fight, felt like the ultimate passive-aggressive insult. It was like he was saying I wasn't even worth the energy. So fine, if he wanted to play it cool, I could play it cooler. I decided to turn up the heat, to orchestrate a symphony of discomfort so loud he'd have no choice but to listen. It became a sick little game, a project I focused on with the intensity of a scientist. Every move was calculated. I started small, weaving Tyler into our conversations like a poison thread. During dinner, I'd casually say, "Oh my god, I just remembered the funniest story. Tyler once tried to cook paella and almost set his kitchen on fire." I'd laugh, a bright, fake sound, and watch Jackson's face for a flicker of something. Nothing, he'd just chew his food methodically, his eyes fixed on his plate, and say, he should have used a pan with a heavier base. It was infuriating. He wasn't just ignoring the bait, he was critiquing its technical specs. So I escalated. I started taking my phone calls on the balcony. I'd make sure the sliding door was open just a crack, enough for my voice to carry. I'd be talking to my sister, Lisa, about the most boring things. A new show on Netflix, what to get mom for her birthday, but I'd perform for my audience of one. "Oh, stop it, you're making me blush." I'd giggle, knowing he was probably at his desk just a few feet away. "No, I can't talk long, Jackson's here." Then I'd come back inside, humming a little tune, acting like I had a delicious secret. I'd peek into his office and see his back perfectly straight, the glow of his dual monitors reflecting in his glasses. He never turned around, not once. He started wearing his noise-canceling headphones around the apartment, even when he wasn't working. He said they helped him focus. I knew they were to block me out. His side of the bed grew colder. He'd stay up later and later in his office, and by the time he came to bed, I'd be pretending to be asleep, my body rigid. Our conversations dwindled to logistics. "Did you pick up the dry cleaning? We're out of milk." The space between us in the apartment felt vast and empty, and I was determined to fill it with enough noise that he'd be forced to acknowledge me. In my twisted logic, his withdrawal wasn't a sign of his pain, it was proof of his indifference. It confirmed everything I feared, that he was just a robot, incapable of real, messy human emotion. And that justification fueled me. It made me feel powerful, like I was the one in control. I wasn't being cruel, I was performing CPR on a dying relationship. The methods were messy, but the goal was noble, right? I was trying to shock its heart back into beating. And every time he failed to react, it just proved me right. He was pushing me to do this, pushing me to be more and more outrageous just to get a single, honest reaction out of him. I was sure that eventually I'd find the one button, the one raw nerve that would finally make him blow up. And then finally, we could have a real fight, a real conversation. Then we could fix this. After a week of him living inside those headphones, I knew I needed a grand gesture. Something undeniable, something he couldn't just tune out. The plan formed in my head, feeling both brilliant and terrifyingly simple. On my way home from work, I stopped at the fanciest florist in the neighborhood, the kind of place where a single rose costs more than a decent lunch. I bought a dozen long-stemmed red roses, the most cliché, outrageously romantic bouquet they had. I even had them wrap it in crackly paper with a giant silk bow. It was perfect. I got home before him and staged the scene. I cleared the center of our dining table, which was usually cluttered with mail and Jackson's tech magazines. I found our nicest crystal vase, a wedding gift to his parents that he'd inherited, and arranged the roses so they looked like they were exploding with color. They were loud, ostentatious, and completely out of place in our minimalist apartment. They were a scream in a library. He came home an hour later. He walked in, dropped his keys in the bowl by the door, and then he stopped. He saw them. For the first time in weeks, he looked up from his own little world and actually saw something I had done. He walked slowly towards the table, not taking his eyes off the flowers. He didn't look angry, just curious, like he'd found a strange artifact in his own home. "The flowers are nice," he said, his voice flat. He finally looked at me and his eyes were tired. "Who are they from?" This was it, the moment I'd been working towards. My heart was hammering against my ribs. I leaned against the kitchen counter, trying to look casual, nonchalant. I gave him a small, pitying smile, the kind you give a child who just doesn't get it. "They're from someone who remembers how to make a girl feel special," I said, my voice dripping with faux sweetness. I let the words hang in the air between us. "See, Jackson. It's not that hard." I didn't say Tyler's name, I didn't have to. The implication was a dagger and I twisted it. I wasn't just saying someone else bought me flowers. I was saying that he, as a man, as my partner, had failed, that he was inadequate. The change in his expression was immediate and terrifying. It wasn't the explosion of anger I had expected. It was an implosion, all the color drained from his face. The exhaustion in his eyes was replaced by something that looked like profound, bone-deep disappointment. It was the look of a man who had been holding onto a tiny thread of hope, and I had just walked up and snipped it with a pair of scissors. He just nodded, a slow, deliberate movement. "Okay," he whispered so quietly I barely heard him. "Okay." Then he turned and walked into his office, closing the door behind him without a sound. And this time I knew. This silence was different, this was the end. The next day was weird. He acted completely normal, which was more unsettling than any fight could have been. He made coffee in the morning, asked if I needed anything from the grocery store, and went into his office to work. There was no mention of the roses, which sat on the table like a funeral wreath. I spent the day on edge, a knot of anxiety tightening in my stomach. I kept waiting for the other shoe to drop, for the confrontation to finally happen. I told myself his silence was him processing, him preparing his arguments for the massive fight we were about to have. I was getting ready to, rehearsing my own lines, my justifications, my accusations. I went out that evening to meet a friend for dinner, mostly just to escape the suffocating quiet in the apartment. I came home around 10. The first thing I noticed was the silence. It was a different kind of silence. Not tense, just empty. The light from the hallway was on, but the apartment felt hollow. Then I saw it. The bowl by the door where he kept his keys was empty. A cold dread washed over me. I walked into the living room. Everything looked the same, except his laptop wasn't on the side table. The stack of programming books he was reading was gone. The roses were still there, already starting to wilt slightly under the warm lights. I ran to his office. The door was ajar. I pushed it open and my breath caught in my throat. It was barren. His ergonomic chair, his massive curved monitor, his meticulously organized cables, all gone. The shelves where his textbooks and manuals used to be were completely bare, with little dust-free rectangles marking where they had sat for 2 years. I stumbled back into the hallway and tore open his closet. Empty. Hangers were scattered on the floor. I sprinted to the bathroom. His toothbrush, his razor, the specific brand of unscented soap he used vanished. It was like he had been surgically removed from our life, leaving behind no scars, no evidence he was ever there. No note on the counter, no text message, no missed call. My hands were shaking as I grabbed my phone, my thumb hovering over his contact. I hit the call button. It went straight to voicemail. I tried again, voicemail. I sent a text. "Jackson, where are you? What is happening?" One gray checkmark, not delivered. My blood ran cold. I went to his social media profile. User not found. He hadn't just left. He had erased me. He had ghosted me from our shared life, from our shared home. All my grand plans for a dramatic confrontation, for tears and apologies and making up, they all evaporated into the silent, empty air of the apartment. There was nothing, just me and a dozen dying roses. For the first 2 days, I was in a state of frantic denial. I called and texted him from my work phone, from apps, from burner numbers. Nothing. I half expected him to walk through the door at any moment, carrying groceries, telling me this was all some elaborate, cruel prank designed to teach me a lesson. But the apartment just stayed silent and empty. On the third day, the panic fully set in, and I called Olivia, our mutual friend. She was my last resort, the only bridge I had left. I launched into a hysterical, tear-soaked monologue the second she answered the phone. I painted a picture of myself as the victim, the confused, abandoned girlfriend. He just left Liv. No note, no call, nothing. He took all his stuff and disappeared. Who does that? It's cruel, it's cowardly. I cried, my voice cracking. I was waiting for her to join in, to tell me he was a monster, that I deserved so much better. But the other end of the line was just quiet. It was an awkward, heavy silence, the kind that tells you the person isn't on your side. Brooklyn, she finally said, her voice careful, measured. He called me the day he left. My heart stopped. What did he say? Is he okay? Where is he? He's okay. He's staying with his brother for a bit, she said, and I could hear the discomfort in her voice. He just wanted me to know he was leaving. He said he knew you'd probably call me, and he asked me to just tell you that he needed space. On space. Space from what? I demanded, my voice rising with indignation. There was another long pause. I could almost hear her debating with herself. Look, Brooklyn, she sighed, and her tone shifted from cautious to just plain weary. He told me about the stuff with your ex, the texts, the flowers. She took a breath. He told me what he said to you a long time ago about his parents. About his one rule. The blood drained from my face. This is what he said, Brooklyn. His exact words were, I told her my one boundary. It feels like I wasn't in a relationship with her, I was in a war with her past. And I'm tired, I've lost it. It's been a few weeks now. On the outside, I'm doing great. I'm an expert at performing fine. I'm out with friends I haven't seen in months, laughing a little too loudly at the bar, ordering another round of shots. Honestly, it's for the best, I declared last night, swirling the tequila in my glass. I'm free, now I can finally find someone who actually has a pulse, someone who knows what romance is. His loss, right? My friends nod and raise their glasses, murmuring their agreement. They're good friends, they're on my side. They only have my version of the story, the one where I'm the fun, passionate girl and he's the boring robot who couldn't handle it. It's a good story, I'm starting to almost believe it myself. But then I come home, I walk into the quiet apartment that still feels too big, too empty, and I see it. The crystal vase is still on the dining table, I haven't had the heart to move it. The roses I bought as a weapon are still in it, they're long dead, of course. The petals are shriveled and brown, curled in on themselves like tiny, clenched fists. A few have fallen onto the table, a circle of black dust. Tonight I walked over and without thinking I reached out to touch one. The stem was brittle and it snapped in my hand. A thorn, dry and sharp, pricked my finger. I watched as a single, perfect bead of red blood welled up on the tip. And standing there, alone in the silence of the life I blew up, with the smell of dead flowers in the air and a stupid, self-inflicted pain on my fingertip, the performance finally ended. The laughter from the bar, the brave face, the angry justifications, they all just fell away. And for the first time in a very long time, I cried, not loud, angry tears. Just the silent, hot, hopeless kind that streamed down your face when you finally realize you were the one holding the grenade all along.